Hi, James here from Parse. Today I'm going to show you how to make a table view that shows your Parse objects in literally minutes. We're going to start with the starter project that you can download from our quick start guide. We've already filled in our app ID and our client keys. So we're pretty much ready to go with Parse. What we're going to do is create a table that lists some to-do items that are stored in Parse. We're going to use a Parse class called PFQueryTableViewController. So this class is just a subclass of UITableViewController, but with lots of goodies to help you with remote data. So let's start simple. I'm going to replace the root view controller to be an instance of the PFQueryTableViewController class. Let's call it controller. When we initialize the class, we have to specify the parse class that the table will be displaying. So let's make the table be a list of to-do items, and let's call the class to-do. Next, we'll replace the root view controller with this new controller we just made. Now let's compile, and let's fire it up to see what it looks like. So it's empty. That's to be expected. So let's create some to-do items. Let's head on over to the data browser. So note, you don't usually have to create your items manually using the data browser, but I'm doing this just because it's easier to illustrate. So I'm going to add a column. Call the column text. Then I'll create a few to-do items. So let's create 4 of them. Okay, so let's go back to our app. And one of the cool things about this class is that it includes pull to refresh automatically. So let's do that. Voila! All the objects get pulled in. So now notice all the code I'm not writing. Parse takes care of getting all the objects from the server. Then the table class handles refreshing and displaying the objects in each cell. You can now skip all this boilerplate code that you used to end up writing over and over again. What's even better is that Parse handles the entire server side for you, so you don't need to develop or deploy server-side code. So this is great, but the table looks a bit plain. So fortunately, the PFQueryTableViewController is easily customizable. Since it's just a subclass of UITableViewController, you get all the functionality that you're familiar with. So let's take a look. So typically, you'll be creating your own subclass of PFQueryTableViewController. I only made it here because it's easy to show an example this way. So we have a handy template code that you can grab. So I'll copy and paste that. And let's create a new class. Let's call it my table controller. So it's going to inherit from PFQueryTableViewController. And I'm going to go paste in the template code. So let's first configure this class to look at the parse class to do, just like we did before. And let's go back to our app delegate. And let's pull that new file in that we created. We called it my table view controller. And let's replace these lines. So this is my table view controller. My table view controller. We just have to init it. Okay, so let's compile and run it just to make sure that it does the exact same thing. Great. Now let's try out the pagination feature. Just like with pull to refresh, pagination comes baked in. Let's add a few more to-do items. Let's just call them A, B. And let's go back to the table class. 7 items. So let's make it 5 objects per page. Let's run it again. So as you can see, we have pagination. You can load more. That's great. If you refresh it, it'll refresh to the first page again. So let's add a new feature to this to-do list. What's a to-do list without prioritizations? So let's add a priority column to our to-do class. Again, you usually don't have to add columns manually. If you're creating objects programmatically, the schema will update automatically when you add a new attribute to an object and you save it. But just for illustration again, I'm going to add it manually here. So let's call it priority, and it's a number. And let's fill in some priorities. Great. So let's go back to our table code. We're going to do 2 things. Let's add the priority number to each cell of the table, and then also sort the table by the priorities. So in order to display the priorities, we need to customize the cell by overriding the cell for row at index path. You're probably familiar with this method if you've used UITableViewController before, but notice that the parse version of this method is a little different. We give you the PF object directly as a parameter to this method. So you can work with PF objects directly and not have to really think about index paths. So right now it's basically using the default style. What we want to do is use the subtitle style to display the priority. So here all we have to do is set the detail label text to be the priority key. Let me fix up the indentation real quick. So actually, I will need to print the number because it's an NS number. Let's see here, string with format. And let's compile and run it. Great. We have the priorities for our tasks now. Let's make it a little prettier. Let's add a little label to it. Okay, so that's looking good. Okay, so now what we want to do is sort the table by the priorities. And in order to do that, we're going to need to override the query for table method. This method basically tells the table how to generate the query necessary to get the PF objects. Fortunately, the template array includes a great starting point for this query. Actually, the only thing I really need to change here is the ordering. So instead of ordering by the created at column, we order by priority. And we want to order by ascending. Let's try it out. Great. Now we have a to-do list that shows the priorities and also sorts them in ascending priority order. So let's recap what we've learned. We have this new PFQueryTableViewController. It's just a subclass of UITableViewController with some special hooks to work with Parse. It's insanely easy to build customized tables that display data from your PF objects. And you get things like pagination, pull to refresh, and caching for free. And we've barely just scratched the surface. This table actually has a few more features, and the Parse platform has a lot more to offer. So check us out at parse.com, sign up, and hack away. Cheers.